So as we mentioned, when it comes to eukaryotic cells, you have animal cells and you have plant cells, and both of them, both eukaryotes, but they do have some differences. So let's look at animal cells first. So with animal cells, you can draw out the general structure like this. And the first thing that we've already labeled basically is this cell membrane. So it's this layer around the outside of the cell. It's not a cell wall, but it's still a layer that goes around the outside. Then in the middle, we've already drawn before, but we'll add it in. This is the nucleus. So let's label that. And the nucleus, as we mentioned, is the area where you store your DNA in a eukaryotic cell. And also in a animal cell, you have things called ribosomes. Draw that out. So you have these structures here, kind of look a bit rectangular, and these are what we call ribosomes. And ribosomes essentially is the site in the cell where protein synthesis happens. So it's where proteins are made. Also in the cell, you have mitochondria. So mitochondria might look like this. And a mitochondria you might have heard of before. Essentially, this is where respiration happens. So it's where you convert glucose into energy. And finally, as we kind of mentioned before, you also have this jelly-like substance, which is called the cytoplasm. And that is basically where all the cell organelles kind of live and hang around in. Okay, so that's animal cells. Now we can also do the same thing for plant cells. So let's do that over here. So with a plant cell, once again, we have the common features. So we do have the cell membrane. Just as before, you also have your nucleus, which you're going to draw in the middle. Once again, you have your ribosomes, which you draw over here. You have your mitochondria, as usual. So we've labeled all of this before, so let's quickly add the labels on. And they have the same functions as they do in the animal cells. You do also have your cytoplasm, as usual. But in addition to this, plant cells do have some additional structures. So they do also have chloroplasts, so we'll add that in green over here. Chloroplast is a site in plant cells where photosynthesis happens. So they're filled with chlorophyll to be able to do that. And actually, we're going to change the structure slightly, so a plant cell does look slightly different to an animal cell. So we're going to move this nucleus out from the middle, and instead what we have actually is this center of the plant cell. And so the nucleus is still going to be there, but it will kind of be on the outside over here. But actually in the middle you have this space. This is what we call a permanent vacuole. Okay, so this is a vacuole in the middle, and inside the vacuole is basically filled with sap. Okay, so cell sap is in the middle of this vacuole, and this takes up the middle of our plant cell. One other thing also, plant cells, they do tend to have a cell wall, and so you can add that onto your diagram as well. So just around the outside, unlike animal cells which only have the cell membrane, the plant cells do tend to also have a cell wall. And the cell wall, actually we should note, is made of cellulose. And what is the purpose of the cell wall? Well, this adds strength to the plant cell. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a few questions. Okay, so try and have a go at answering the following questions. Feel free to pause the video to have a go. So question 1, where does protein synthesis occur in an animal cell? In an animal cell, the protein synthesis occurs in the ribosomes. Okay, so you should be able to say that. Question number 2, do animal cells have cell walls? Animal cells do not have cell walls, actually. Only plant cells have cell walls. Animal cells do not. What is in the middle of a plant cell? Well, in the middle of an animal cell is a nucleus, but within a plant cell you have a space in the middle, and that is the vacuole. And actually the vacuole is filled with the cell sap. Okay, so you can also add that for extra detail. And the last question then, what is the purpose of a cell wall? The cell wall adds basically structural integrity, and it adds strength to the cell. That's essentially the purpose of the cell wall. Okay, so hopefully you got those right, and I'll see you in the next one.